Welcome to our latest edition of the IT Factor, the webinar, where we at Amshot are helping share the joy, since it's the holiday season, of technology. We do a general technology webinar once a month, and we do an AI-focused webinar also once a month. So we're currently doing 2 webinars a month here, and our goal is to share what's new in technology, what's good in technology, how it works. The IT world is kind of a behind the scenes thing. So we want to share a lot about what we do. It's our mission at Amshot to provide powerful and valuable technologies to decision makers and our clients. We do that by having an engaging environment for our team to thrive. Speaking of that, I'm joined today by Hunter McKinney, a TAM at Amshot, and that stands for Technology Alignment Manager. Don't mean to steal your thunder, Hunter. Hunter's been with us for a couple years. He is the hidden metric for Hunter is to be invited to the most client Christmas parties of anybody at Amshot. And so he has a real unique role. So tell us about yourself and a little bit about what you do at Amshot.
Yeah, so I've been at amshot for just about 2 years, camming, and it started with we had a pretty good foundation from the true peer methodology for what the TAM should be. We've really made it into our own. We have focused really hard on capturing as much data as possible, and that really requires a lot of personal touches and getting to know people. And that's a skill set that I brought. I've been a bartender, and I've just been a people person my whole life. It's kind of the same thing, just without providing liquor to the disgruntled clients. So a lot of the soft skills that are utilized.
Well, not always. I mean,
no, not always. And
sometimes.
That Christmas party is definitely the caveat there. So primarily, what I do, I call myself the walking, talking complaint box to the client, and I call myself the basis at the MSP. We don't get the glory, but we're a lot of the backbone for success for us, the strategy department as a whole. Um, so when I go to the client offices, I like to just kind of get a pulse check from everybody, see what's going on, see what they don't like, see what they, just kind of talk to them like you would to your friend. Especially upon a new implementation or coming off of a project, anything like that. I want to capture kind of what the experience is like for you, because we can look at something on paper and tell you it's going to do this, that, or the other, and then in practice, it may not turn out that way. And so we won't know that until we get somebody there to chat with them about it and see how it's affecting them and the organization as a whole.
And so you're usually doing 4 or 5 assessments a week. How much time do you spend at the client's office during that week?
And that can range. It depends on a lot of the time, because everybody's different. Some people are more technically driven and they want to know a lot more stuff from me, a lot more about what we're doing in the background. And some people are just bottom line focused. So it ranges. Typically, on average, I would say about 2 hours is kind of the sweet spot for me. It gives me about an hour to go and chat with the people, see what's going on, follow up on any issues from the last assessment that I had, and then it gives me about an hour to check in on the technical systems, make sure there's no Captain Obvious red flags that we need to address and take care of. So the 2 hours is about the sweet spot. But again, that can range a lot. Sometimes I've been there for 4 hours. Sometimes I've been there for one. It really depends on the.
And so that leaves the rest of the time you're preparing. You're looking things up, you're examining things from your desk, you're completing checklists. So, 2 hours there, 6 hours prepping and doing post work. So, that really kind of explains how the TAM works. And the idea of the TAM, Technology Alignment Manager, for us at Amshot is we're looking ahead. We're trying to find things that aren't working or about to stop working before they cause a fire, before they cause an issue. So we're going to talk a lot about this in this webinar, because what you don't know can hurt you. And that's the whole idea of the TAM role, is going on site, looking around, opening things up in the back end to make sure everything looks well before there's a problem. So by the end of the session, you'll understand how an IT health check, what we call an assessment, it will help you uncover risks that often go unnoticed. Everyday issues like missed patches, weak controls in 365, accounts that shouldn't be there, leave doors open for attackers. And how if we simply just look on the regular at these things, we will find things that help prevent expensive downtime or breaches. Hopefully you'll walk away knowing what to expect from a good technology company that is doing proactive assessments, technology checkups, so that your business can really perform. I really like to think of how we operate isn't just checking check boxes, but it prepares our clients to be more adaptable to economic changes, to industry changes, opportunities. If you are healthy, if your business technology is healthy, you can adapt faster and better. So here's some of the top threats that people are facing today. The number one is, of course, AI powered phishing. The concept that you can just look at an email and see that it doesn't quite sound right is no longer a way to vet phishing emails, because the bad guys are using Gemini, Copilot, Claude Code. They're using all these things so that their English is perfect now. It's not as easy. You have to make sure that you've got the checks in place that are going to keep you from making mistakes, because the social engineering is getting so much better, down to voice simulation, video deepfakes of your own team members. There was the first deepfake attack was a CFO in London, was working with his finance team in Hong Kong. They were on a Zoom call. He approved a $25 million wire. Everyone on his finance team that was in Hong Kong, all of those people were deepfakes. They were not the real people in the Zoom meeting, and he could not tell the difference. And that's how dangerous things are. We all know about ransomware, and this is a traumatic event in a business life. It can be a mortal event to a business. A significant percentage of businesses that suffer a ransomware attack close. And I know that we're a really healthy IT shop. I don't think that any of your clients that you, Tam, have ever had this happen. So
No, they haven't, luckily, because that is definitely, this is a sophisticated attack, and it is that I've seen a lot of mayhem just in the grapevine through that. And I have a friend that works at a very large international mining company, and a lot of those older infrastructures, they don't tend to value technology nearly as much as probably should. And
yeah.
massive machine. One of the kilns that they use to process a lot of the raw materials, massive. They had that thing running on basically Windows 7. And this guy who was operating it, honestly scared of his flip phone, clicked the link for a Cabela's 50% off deal, and boom, ransomware implanted. The guy turns on the kiln, and until he gets the ransom money, and the estimated payout was about 20 million in Bitcoin, that thing was just on without administering the cooling agent. You got a giant bomb in the middle of your plant. So this is no laughing matter, and it can definitely have some serious ramifications.
Yeah. And ransomware is kind of like a lagging indicator, or a thing that happens if you're not healthy. Some of the ways that you can get a ransomware are these other bullets. So cloud misconfigurations, analyzing people's Microsoft 365 on the regular to make sure it's okay. Monitoring all of your supply chain. So when we say supply chain in technology, that's a business impact analysis. That's something where we're looking at the software that our clients are using, and we're going to them and saying, what if you couldn't get to Salesforce for a prolonged period of time? What would you do? What would you do if Salesforce was down? There was a big outage at a car dealership platform, and it managed car dealership payroll and buying cars. Everything that they did in thousands of car dealerships in the United States, all of a sudden it was off. They suffered a ransomware attack. And so all these car dealerships, they're not selling cars, they're not processing payroll, they're just sitting on their hands, because no one ever went to them and said, hey, what do we do if? Do we still have paper checks? Could we still process payroll? Could we bust out a knuckle buster? Could we sell a car somehow? What would we do if this happened? And it was a huge problem. And that's what supply chain means in the technology space, in for a small and medium business, beyond, of course, your supply chain. If you're in manufacturing, or you need items to come to your facility, there's also a digital supply chain, and along those lines are vendor breaches. We've also got insider threats. It's not always someone doing something evil, but an insider threat may be just someone who accidentally sends out something they shouldn't or accidentally deletes an entire folder that they shouldn't. It's a right click and delete if you don't have the right things in place. But you do have to think about it. What if somebody stole our data? What would that do to your business? And if you're not doing regular health checks, these are things that you're not thinking about. If when you think of your IT department of just the people we call on the phone when something's broken, you are vulnerable, and there's a lot that can go. Definitely, we're going to talk about unpatched systems, legacy technology, and software on a couple of these slides. And then, of course, we've got IoT devices. Most people are familiar with the Target breach. It came from a thermostat on the wall. All the credit card numbers, all the Target client data got leaked because of a thermostat on the wall in a Target. And then remote work. After 2020, we all know that remote work is something that we all need to be thinking about, because on a whim, you might break your ankle. We had one of our team members broke his ankle a week or two ago, and we're ready. We're ready for him to work remote 100% of the time. No problem. Let's see what's next here. Yeah. So what is an IT health check, or what we call an assessment? So give us your take on what an assessment is for a client.
Really, when you whittle it down, it's about capturing data in all forms possible. So the first layer typically for me is legacy equipment, old hardware. That's the stuff that I look at first. A lot of the times, especially when we're onboarding a client, what do we need to update? What needs to get into this century? A lot of the times you never know we buy a lot of these clients as is, so to speak. Getting that is usually the first layer of defense that I go through. And upon each one of those, it's just further and further. So I will then also try to maintain firmware updates for a lot of these, or make sure that this legacy firmware can do, implemented for. So firmware updates, web filtering, all those things. And from there, I will move into software risk, and then capturing data from the client. What's the biggest pain? And moving forward from there, that usually gives me a pretty solid foundation to kind of start whittling that away, and upon each assessment, getting better.
It is kind of like an onion. You do have to look at the physical layer first. That's where it all starts and stops. Yeah. What do they have? What does it look like? Is it dirty, dusty? Is it in a closet that people can get access to? All these things at their basic level when we get someone onboarded, a new client. And you are right. That is where we start, right? We start that relationship. We start that process there. Asset awareness is a huge part. And then thinking of how you prioritize these risks. We can't go in and figure out everything at once. So we do have to prioritize them. And so when you come across something that you think is extremely risky, what's your process? How do you kind of escalate that up and let the appropriate people?
Well, I'll verify my fear for what I'm seeing. So that's the first step that I do. I'll get it to the appropriate departments to be like, hey, is this as big of a threat as I believe it could be? And from there, we'll prioritize that accordingly. But a lot of the time, going through the order of operations, looking at the hardware first, making sure firmware and stuff is updated, that is proactive, and that will stop a lot of those from coming to fruition, so to speak. So by going through the process, I usually catch those things before anything like that happens. But if it's in the event that it does not fall within the process or out of the bounds of that, then it will go to the proper departments, and we'll handle that accordingly. So, and upon each layer of the onion that you speak, it gets a little bit tougher and tougher to get through each onion layer. What the hardware and asset awareness, that's low hanging fruit. We can get that done right away. We can get our agents on there, pull those reports, and that's pretty clear. That doesn't take too terribly long. I can get that done, and we can usually make some good headway on that in the first couple of assessments. And then after that, the layers start getting a little bit taller, a little bit more challenging. But upon each time that we do that, we make some real milestones in getting them secure.
One of the things that's we have to think about is threat detection and contemporary threats. So when something new, like we get wind of a patch that needs to go out immediately. I know that you work with Taylor, who's our centralized services engineer, who is monitoring all of our systems live. He's in charge of all of the tools, making sure that they're doing what they can. And I know when we find something out like that, you guys put your heads together. You think of how we're going to prioritize our clients to start triaging and getting this fixed before it's a problem. Because now, these breaches, these alerts, these vulnerabilities, they're in the media, they're in the news. We're keeping up to date with this information so that we can, instead of having a client have sadness of a ransomware attack, we have heard from the media, heard from our industry that we need to work on something. You guys identify what it is, you get it, notify the clients, you patch it. And that's just being ahead of the game. And being healthy sometimes means a little bit of crisis management, and a little bit of preventative crisis management is worth a lot of crisis. So
it sounds counterintuitive, but anytime that I'm doing a software pull or hardware pull and I find something at risk, that's a good day. So that's something that I'm excited for, and that's a win for us. So even though we got to take a hit on that maybe in some capacity, but much better than the latter, what that could turn.
Yeah, and I know you guys had a great and you have a great cadence on managing our firewalls. So talk a little bit about how you guys work together to make sure firewalls are healthy and make sure that they're safe.
Well, we had a client that was breached from out of the country at one point, and that really forced us to look at all of our clients with firewalls that don't have web filtering in place. Where's this traffic coming from? Why do we have access open to the Philippines, to wherever? And so from that, we made a plan of action to, instead of being back heels trying to react and cover the client and ourselves in that, let's get ahead of it. And so we started a little initiative onto every firewall, verify all those parameters are in place and that they are as secure as can be moving forward. And so that's something that I check on almost a daily cadence. I mean, I'll do the client assessment. That's where I really get into their nitty gritty and get as detailed as I can. But on the times that I have a little more flexibility, I look at everybody. I do a weekly kind of check in on all clients to be an extra arm of centralized services to monitor alerts, monitor any activity that I can. All data is helpful in that. So that's typically how we handle it now. That's the cadence that we're in, and we're trying to apply that to other systems.
And kind of how you talked about that, it is how we work. A traditional IT group might have someone who's in charge of some dashboard, or is doing some centralized engineering, or they're monitoring security software and patching for Windows computers. But the cool thing about our TAM and the TAM role is that it's just a second set of eyes that's looking at it from a different angle. It's kind of like trust, but verify. It's the, centralized services is the trust piece, and the technology alignment manager, they're the verify piece. Because you got to kind of look under the hood. You can't always trust the dashboard. You can't always trust the report. And so, you gotta kind of dig. You're kind of like the Sherlock Holmes of amshot, which you play that role really. We spend a ton of time patching and rebooting. Clients don't like it. It'd be much easier if we just let clients not reboot their computer for 80, 90 days and not patch it and didn't ever buy. But, we have to, new clients, we have to coach them and say like, hey, this is happening. We're doing this. You have these three options of when your computer's going to reboot. Let's go. We need you to be safe. You don't want to have a problem.
Yeah, and that's sometimes hard to sell to them. I'm going to give you a little headache now to save you from a big one. And it takes some convincing and building that trust, and that's another part of that role where we're coming in and we're shoring these up, and we're closing the loop on a lot of these bad practices and kind of ignoring the problem. And I think that's been tail of the tape for a lot of our clients that I've had to kind of get to that trust level. Yeah, definitely with Taylor, we're shaking and baking all the time on that, and that's what's a little bit different about the TAM role here at amshot. I'm not quite working a lot of those centralized services tickets I've seen in other MSPs and other spaces of colleagues that we've spoken with. I'm really there to alert, notify, and that gives me a lot more bandwidth to focus on that rather than just trying to remediate one for a week. I can capture a lot of them, and then we can get together and prioritize how risky and what needs to be done. It's a good.
One of the things that we talk about a lot and we're thinking about is rogue IT and or shadow IT, and that's maybe a power user or a subject matter expert that has some extra software that they want or they need that's outside of what everyone else in the company has, and that software may be risky or may not be needed. So tell us a little bit about how you're analyzing software installed on client systems and looking for that risk.
So I'll pull the entire software list that we have on file, and that can be anywhere from 300 entries up to 1,000. So there's a lot to go through. And I'll funnel that through ChatGPT to get with some parameters and some prompts that I've given it to, hey, flag these at any that would be high risk under certain parameters in cybersecurity risk management and assessment. And from that point, Taylor and I will get together and look at the ones that we know are either in use or not as big of a threat as maybe they were flagged to be. And from that point, we have a pretty concise list of things that we know we need to get rid of, things that are either dated or just malware. And so we don't get on that very quickly. He snubbed that. Yeah. He's on top of that, and it helps if he doesn't have a lot of the time or the bandwidth to go through 900 entries, and that's that data capture that is so important to this role and to overall security.
Yeah, it's so important. One thing that we do at amshot that's a little bit different is that we have a tech stack that we deploy to all our clients, and we're really strict about it. So, we don't let clients make decisions about a backup strategy. We tell them the best backup strategy that they need, and they trust us. And so all of our clients have similar backup strategies. So it's easier to manage and look for those variances and to know that our clients are safe because we have a process that we for our clients. There's a great analogy by a gentleman, Gary Pica, and it's that we don't sell any ingredients. We sell chocolate cake. We don't sell sugar. We don't sell flour. We sell chocolate cake. Do you want chocolate cake? Yes. We'll let you put a little icing on top. We might let you put a scoop of ice cream on the side, but you got to get the cake. We can't have clients that have this type of backup, this type of antivirus, this type of that, and have all the clients be different. It's too hard to economically support all of that kind of a mess. So when you are sitting with an IT firm, these are the questions that you need to understand. What's their tech stack like? Do they have command of their processes? Do they have command of their plan? And that goes into a little bit of the costs and risks. So I'm just going to skip to the last one because this is my favorite one. There are all sorts of things that can happen. If your data is leaked online, imagine if all of your company's corporate data, email, tax returns, financial software statements, everything you've got was just available to the world. Think about if you lost all that data. It was nowhere to be. Of course, there's security and financial and your business, the frustration of it. But at the end, it's your reputation. It's your reputation as a business that you were out of business for 2 weeks. You couldn't fulfill orders. You couldn't deliver on your client promises. You're closed for 2 whole weeks. What's your reputation like then? Are you going to lose clients? How long is it going to take you to earn the trust of your clients and vendors? Some vendors are going to, we don't want to work with you until you get your house. Yeah. And one thing I go to my clients when we're trying to, either clients or future clients, I like to tell them, and the way we have to do things, why we have this process, why we work the way is, it's not just their reputation on the line, it's our reputation. And you just can't let a small or medium business make technology mistakes because they want to do something a little different or think that one part of your product is too. Well, that puts amshot at risk. That puts them at risk and us. And I don't, as much as they want to tell me, my clients, hey, we're not going to hold you accountable. They will. If something bad happens, they're going to say, amshot is our IT company. It's their fault. That reputational damage is huge.
Well, and just to piggyback on that a little bit, I did a business impact analysis for a fully cloud-based client, and they're all different software and applications and tools that they use. They touched a lot of these, so financial, security, operational. I would say that 90% of them touch reputational, and that's really what it came down to. And that's hard to recover from. That's
Yeah.
we can recover operational and strategic impact pretty quickly with a lot of our tools and skill sets, but reputational damage is harder to get back. And so that takes prioritize that.
So yeah, just on the financial one, that's the easiest one to figure out. Just
Yeah.
figure out what your revenue was.
Mm.
Last there's about 240 working days in the year, divided by 240, and that's your cost every day that you're not. And so, how much is that worth? Is it 2 days that you could afford? Is it 6? Is it 15? But that reputation you can't get back. It's so hard to earn back.
It's a harder metric to capture too. You're flying blind trying to get that stuff back, and that's no easy.
Okay, so a little bit of our structure is we focus on security. We're spending a lot of time managing assets, counting them, making sure the right people have the right assets, so that those assets are healthy. We manage a high-end backup and disaster recovery, BCDR process, and it's required if you have on-premise or cloud servers, you're required to use solution. We mix and match. Compliance is a lifestyle. It's not a thing that happens one day and you check the box and it's over. It's continuous. You always have to be checking. The state of your IT is in constant entropy. It is constantly degrading, and effort has to be put into it to maintain it, keep it healthy, keep up to date on changes, all of those things. User access. This is huge now with Copilot coming out and people, attaching their ChatGPT to their OneDrives and all sorts of stuff. If your users have too much access, now AI has too much access. And do you want to give all of your company data to ChatGPT for free so that they can train models and your competitors can ask questions about your finances? No, you need to make sure that your users are doing the right things and have the least amount of permission. We talked about our software licensing. We talked about how you're looking at our software stack and making sure that it's safe and continuously doing that. And then the last is the monitoring and alerting system. This is that trust. Our centralized services engineer is getting alerts. They're setting up these monitors. They're building loops that are actively closing things, using scripts and using AI. But you're the side that is manually checking as well to see if anything fell through.
Yeah. Now, automation is great, and that helps all of us to kind of keep the plate spinning, but it will get a set of eyes on there and verify. And that we've caught a lot of things that way. I mean, things that just we would have missed without me capturing that data and then doing the work.
I speak to a lot of different managed IT providers, and a lot of them think that the network admin or the technology alignment manager, that role is something that can be done 100%, and there's just no way. You have to get your boots on the ground. You have to examine these environments. You have to understand the personalities of the people you're working with. You have to understand the business. So yeah, how can we help? So how can amshot help? We work with potential clients to uncover technology environments blind so that they are fixed before they lead to bigger problems. Just think about that and how important it is that you have your employees working efficiently day in, day out. The less issues they have, the more efficient. Numerous times I've had conversations with clients and potential clients. Well, how many support calls did you have to take? How much time did you spend on support? As little as possible. We'll do anything to stop a support call from coming. Our support desk, our help desk is incredibly responsive. Response times, ticket closure times under 30 minutes last week. Like, we are incredible. One of the ways we do that is by keeping things from designing projects, doing engineering work, aligning systems, monitoring systems so that we catch things before it hits that support desk. If you're working with an IT shop that is everything's on fire. They are slow to answer the phone. They're always running from crisis to crisis. It is a terrible experience for you as a client, and it is a terrible experience for the engineers and the support staff at that IT. And so when people ask me, how much time have I spent supporting their tickets or their issues, I turn around and I go, the real question is, how much time have we making sure that nothing bad happens? That's the real question. How much effort are we putting in? How many tools are we using? How much time? And then how much missed billable time have you had in your, oh, you had, 45 minutes last month of non-billable time because somebody was waiting for an IT issue. How incredible is that? What would it have been like if it was 10 hours?
Yeah.
What would it have been like if it was 20 hours? Do you want as a client your IT support desk to spend 20 hours supporting your users every month? The answer is no. That is too expensive. It is way too expensive for you as a client to have your employees stuck. It's bad for your culture. It's bad for their productivity. It's bad for their work-life balance. It is anything that you can do to stop issues. And that's what the technology alignment or a technology health check is designed to do.
And it makes it a whole lot harder to get invited to those Christmas parties when they've got the 10 hours of downtime. And that makes it a lot harder when you're the face on a month-to-month basis. So that's not fun for anyone. And we want to.
Right. So our goal is to ensure that your systems are efficient and aligned with your business. So if you want a clear picture of where your IT stands and what needs attention, we can walk you through a personalized technology health check. It's practical, easy to understand, and it's designed to help you take control of your IT environment with confidence to deliver, work-life balance, ROI, the value of your technology. And a health check is a really important way that we're able to do that. Our next webinar is next year. It's next year, Janelle. We don't have to worry about it. It's not coming up for forever. Just kidding. It's January 15th. And so it's going to be an AI-focused episode. It will be all about the metadata that your information needs so that Copilot is useful. So think about tags, labels, data loss prevention, so scanning your data for social security numbers, credit card numbers, and your retention policy. How long are you going to keep this data around? When you get your data, your Copilot, your ChatGPT, your Gemini, whatever AI you want to use, is going to be much more productive because it's going to have content to answer those questions. So use that QR code to register. Hunter, it was great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me on the webinar today. Drew couldn't join us. He is headed to Norman for the OU Alabama game. I'm headed there in a little bit. So this is the Super Bowl of college football in Oklahoma, as far as I can tell. Sooner.
Well, right. Michael, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure as always. Appreciate you giving me the talk some more. It's all I do ever. So happy to do it. Happy to.
Pleasure's all here. All right.